Not too long ago, I finished my first manga series ever, Pluto by Naoki Urasawa, a seinen manga of very high acclaim. I knew nothing about this journey going into it, but after finishing the 8 volumes, I could say this: I liked it. I liked it a lot. So, what is Pluto? It is a murder mystery retelling of Astroboy. Yes, Astroboy, the legacy manga we have all heard of. One of the most iconic manga series of all time. And the creator of this manga made it adult, made it gritty, made it unpredictable, and made it something entirely original. And it snuck up on me. Why did I choose Pluto as my first manga series to read? I don't know why. I was just Googling short manga series for adults. And Pluto was very highly rated, and I opened it up with no prior knowledge about the series, and it was just perfect. Exactly what I was looking for, and it gives you the full spectrum of emotions. So let's talk about what I loved about Pluto first, and we'll get into the negatives later. Somebody is hunting down the world's most advanced robots, and the story follows a robot detective as he tries to solve this mystery that includes humans and great robots being murdered. The plot thickens as the case grows more and more complicated. Let me paint a picture of the setting. This takes place in a future where humans and robots live side by side. Following the aftermath of the 39th Central Asian War, humans and robots preside in an uneasy peace, with people unsure about where robots fit in society. This tension between humans and robots is at the center of this story, and it underpins everything that is happening throughout all 8 volumes. Yes, these are soulless machines, but we care that somebody is hunting them down because we see how complex, how human-like they really are, as we see how they've coped with their traumas, with their past, and how they've buried themselves in all their interests in the present day. And they're trying to put the war behind them, but for some reason or another, they can't escape their past. So it's a race against the clock. We want our characters to survive. We want to see the answer to all these mysteries, the answers to all these questions, and we don't want all these characters to die before we get those answers. And it's just incredibly riveting. I cried in volume 1. Like, that's not a lot of time. You could finish this entire series in like 6 hours, and I was in tears in the first hour. And for a character-driven story, that's incredibly impressive. If I was to describe the tone of Pluto, I would say it is incredibly heavy and depressing and introspective, but there are moments of brightness, moments of laughter, moments of hope, which make the majority of this story incredibly dark and dismal, because we know how good it can be. We see little windows into the lives of our robots, into the lives of our main characters, and we know that they have a lot to lose. There is incredibly high stakes, and as the stakes keep getting raised, the story becomes a lot more emotional, and you'll just find yourself rooting for our characters, not wanting harm to come upon them. And I was just emotionally invested from volume 1 up until the last page, and it's just an amazing ride. I really like how the author was able to use Pluto as a platform to talk about mental health, trauma, and personhood, because robots are distinctly different from humans in this setting, but they do have a past, they do have hopes for the future, and they do have regrets. And because they are robots that were used in a war, they were used for a purpose that was not their intended purpose, they feel wrong about that, an innate wrongness that is incredibly human-like and very relatable. Whenever we are forced to do something that is against our nature, even if it is for the greater good, it deeply wounds you and changes you. And the author was able to capture that and portray that masterfully, and that was perhaps one of my favorite aspects of this manga. Now let's talk about the weird, because there's not a lot of bad parts of Pluto, but there are some weird things that I wasn't anticipating that I think kind of took away from the story. Like, for example, there was a human supremacist equivalent of the KKK. Yes, the Ku Klux Klan. They wear white pointy hoods. They talk about like human power, human rights, about how all robots need to be destroyed. And that seemed very out of place, incredibly jarring, particularly like including the pointed white hoods, because I don't think that was needed. It was very strange. Also, there's a sentient teddy bear. And you're never made aware of who this teddy bear is. I can't get into any spoilers, and after Googling what the teddy bear meant, it's like an Easter egg for people that read Astroboy, but that's never explained in the context of this story. So that was just incredibly strange to have like this murder mystery, then there's just this talking teddy bear. And that was a little weird. And finally, the last weird thing that was very jarring was the 39th Central Asian War is incredibly reminiscent of America's actions following 9/11. They go into Central Asia looking for robots of mass destruction and using that as justification to conquer a nation and overthrow their democracy and their leaders. I feel like that didn't need to be added to the narrative, but pretty telling. It makes sense. This manga was started in 2003, so that was very front and center in global affairs, but very strange how eerie and how comparable and alike it was to America's actions in the Middle East. If I was to say one negative about this manga, it is this. The ending was rushed. It was a damn near perfect murder mystery story filled with plenty of plot twists, engaging characters, thoughtful dialogue, all the great things. But the ending just needed perhaps 20 more pages. Just 3 minutes more of reading time, and the ending could have been more fleshed out and not so rushed. Climax? Great. The emotional feelings towards the end? Great. But the final scene left a lot to be desired. And I'm always going to be wondering what happens next. Perhaps the anime expounds upon that, but the ending of the manga was very underwhelming. And that's sad because it was a damn near perfect murder mystery plot with so much going for it. But that's nitpicking. It was still really good, but the ending just wasn't up to the same standard as the rest of the story. I guess because we're talking about manga, I should comment on the artwork. It was okay. I haven't read too much manga, but it was okay. It was very easy to distinguish between the characters, except for one of our main characters and one of their enemies. They were very similar looking, and that was a little confusing for volume 3, 4, 5. But besides that, every character was incredibly distinct, and it was very easy to follow the story. Final thoughts. Favorite character, Epsilon, hands down. Epsilon was incredibly intriguing and compelling, and I was the most emotionally connected to Epsilon. Favorite chapters, the North number 2 chapters, were so emotional. They took place in volume 1, and after finishing the North number 2 chapters, I knew I was going to finish all 8 volumes, and I read the series in 1 week, and it was just so well done. Will I read another manga? Most definitely. I think I'm going to be a manga reader now. I just finished my second manga ever, and I can't believe it took me 28 years to become a manga reader. Because I grew up watching anime, Naruto, Bleach, Dragon Ball Z, but like a lot of people, I kind of aged out of it at some point, and those series became so long that it was very daunting and intimidating to return to them. So I wanted to read a manga that was short and sweet, and Pluto was just that. So I'm a manga reader from this point forward. I'm very impressed by the art form, and I think it's going to be a favorite form of escapism from this point forward. Thank you for watching my first manga review. If you have any manga you'd like to recommend to me, please keep it short. Leave them in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys next time.